Okay, looks like we're live. If anybody can tell me how the sound is and if there's anything I need to adjust, I'm more than happy to do that. Welcome to Terry Talks Movies. This time around, I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff. I'm talking about the movies I'm going to go see, the movies I've purchased, the movies I've received, and also the worst movie that I've seen in 2022 so far. And it's a little bit unexpected. So I've got middle-aged geek girl doing the moderation. So if you misbehave, she will slap you down, and rightly so. And yeah, so let's have a look. Is there anybody actually in the chat yet? Now I've got to make this interesting at the start. So I've actually changed the soundboard a little bit, and so I've got sounds like I've got a little bit of Leslie Nielsen.
Who are you and how did you get in here?
I'm the locksmith. And I'm the locksmith.
And what else have I got on here? I've got this, which I'm hoping to one for the algorithm. Brog says, yeah, I've got this one too, which is I'll let people work out where this one's from.
Anything can happen in the next half hour.
There's that one, and I've got one more new one, I think. Let me just check. Yep, I got a little bit of Die Hard because it's heading towards Die Hard season.
Welcome to the party, pal!
So I've got that. So I've changed the soundboard just a little bit. I'm going to have to caffeinate a bit more, I think. So, yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a wild one this time, a little bit wild, loose, and freewheeling. But toward the end of the live stream, I'm going to tell you about the movie I saw. That, for me, is the worst movie I've seen this year. And I've seen some pretty shitty movies this year, to be terribly honest with you. And I've seen some great ones too, but that's how it goes any year if you're taking a punt on things. I'm finding a lot of people are curating what they watch a little too carefully. They're going around social. Yeah, Friday James says Stingray, absolutely right. No problem. So we've got two Lees. We've got a Roy in here. But yeah, that little sting. This one is from Stingray, which is a Jerry and Sylvia Anderson animated thing from the 1960s. But I kind of like this. I actually put it on my old podcast back in the day as well.
Anything can happen in the next half hour.
Yeah, I like that. So yeah, I've got that. But let me just, what we're going to start with, I will start with this because we found this at the supermarket and I'm dearly in love with this. I'm only going to play it a little bit because I may get demonetized for playing the music. But it's this saxophone playing skeleton, which I like reasonably because it does this. Yeah. So I've got that for the man cave. I put up some spider webs as well because it's Halloween time and also because I don't clean the man cave very often. But yeah, so it's been a lot of fun lately just watching things. And a lot of people are curating what they watch a little carefully. I know people are time poor and they tend to do that, but I'm getting a lot of stuff on social media where people go, should I watch this? Is this a good thing to watch? That kind of thing. All hail Benny Hill, says Roy. So yeah, there's a lot of people curating what they watch, and I'm kind of against that. Yeah, I understand that people are time poor and that things are a little bit tight as far as just relaxing time. But you got to take a chance, I think. You really got to take a punt on things you haven't tried before, things that are outside your comfort zone, things that are maybe not to what you thought your taste was, but in the end, you may like them. Yeah, you're going to see some dogs, and I think that one of the things I know over the last few years is if a movie is bad, you can learn as much about cinema from a bad movie as you can from a good one. You can learn what doesn't work, and sometimes you don't quite understand at first what doesn't work, but then you can kind of do a little bit of a deep dive and go, yeah, okay, I really understand. I'm grounded on why that doesn't work. But Lee says, I love Stingray. Saw the repeats in the early 90s, but Joe 90 was definitely my favorite. Hi, FG. Yeah, I never got into Joe 90 that much. I didn't like it that much because the focal point was a kid, and I was a kid at the time and I didn't like kids. But for me, Stingray was kind of fun. What else was I watching around then? A lot of underwater stuff, like Sea Hunt with Lloyd Bridges and also Marine Boy. I watched a lot of Marine Boy, which was an anime from Japan that played incessantly on Australian television. Let's see. Middle-aged geek girl, can you tell me whether the sound levels are going okay on this from your point of view? because I'll be interested in getting that little technical thing. So yeah, I've been watching things. I'll actually go through my letterbox. Dean Johnson says, on this lazy afternoons in Northern California, just finished watching, to my dismay, an awful movie that deserves negative reviews it received in the day. What was the movie, Dean? Gotta let us know. Yeah, middle-aged good girl said, and Lee say it sounds okay. Movie was Battlefield Earth. I never ever watched Battlefield Earth because I hate Scientology and I think it's a malicious and malign ideology, so I won't watch that one. Yeah, Friday James says Oxygum, absolutely. Yeah, hi. I can't really read the Cyrillic alphabet, so I'll say hi to the guy with the Cyrillic name. Yeah, so basically, so I watched a lot of underwater stuff because I liked swimming when I was a kid. Still do want to get a chance, though. I live in Melbourne, and if you go into any kind of wild water here, ME sent Canadian $2. Hi, ME. Thank you very much for the super chat. I will play the Die Hard soundboard sound again for you for that.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Thank you. Yep, it's Vladimir. Hi, Vladimir. Thank you for coming along to the live stream. So, yeah, I'm going to go through the letterbox and just talk about what I've been watching lately. I watched Doom, the movie of Doom. I rewatched it. I got it on Blu-ray, picked it up crazy cheap. And it's from about 2003, 2005. It's got Dwayne Johnson when he still had a little bit of hair there. And I rewatched that. And the funny thing about Doom is that most of the movie is total shit. But it's also got Carl Urban in it, amongst other people. It's kind of trying to do a franchise based on Doom. Now, Doom is a very simplistic game because it came out when you could only make simplistic video games. Yep. Sally Middle-aged Good Girl says, remember to hit the like button as it does help the channel. Oh, you're good. You are getting much better at this moderation. But anyway, watching Doom. It's got a whole bunch of space marines who go through a portal to Mars and a research lab where things are going belly up and all sorts of monsters are appearing. Now, the interesting thing about this is there's about a 5-minute scene that's good in the whole movie, where they, in real, without computer generated effects, pretty much, they do a point of view which is like playing Doom. And I like that. They took 14 days to film this short sequence, and it worked for me. I mean, it's a good action thing. It really gave the feel of the game, but I kind of liked the fact that they went there and did that, even though it was a fairly low budget film at the time. They made the point of view work, and also Dwayne Johnson got killed in the movie, so I've got no problems with that. Lee Lavery says PS4 remake was good. Haven't played the sequel though. Yeah, I mean, I played like Wolfenstein when it was just dots on a screen, and then I played Doom when Doom came out and enjoyed that. So yeah, in fact, I'll just put Doom 2, the old-fashioned Doom 2, on my mobile phone. I'm playing that at the moment. The old school gamer, I was playing things like a Calibeth on Apple IIs and all of those kinds of games. Doom the movie, great opening sequence with the Universal logo laid on top of a globe of Mars. Yeah, absolutely, Dean. And they got the globe of Mars right too, because they had the 3 volcanoes in a row and all that kind of thing. I love the fact that Universal and Columbia tend to mess with their logos a little bit. There's a bit at the start of Cat Ballou where the woman with a torch in the Columbia logo turns into a cowgirl shooting 6 guns and things like that. So I like the fact that they mess with the logos. Great opening sequence. Yeah. I don't mind playing old school games. But at the moment, I'm really kind of going mad on Skyrim. I'm adding mods to Skyrim so you can do all sorts of things the game wasn't intended to do. And Skyrim has been out for about 11 years. And in spite of that, it hasn't aged that much because the modding community keeps making it better. It's a really weird phenomenon. But so I watched the Dune movie. What else did I watch? The Slumber Party Massacre. Now, the Slumber Party Massacre is an interesting slasher film. Darren Bennett, $2.99. Well, that's got to go in 15 minutes, but hi, everyone. Thank you, Darren. Thank you for coming along, and thank you for the donation, you get the Leslie Nielsen soundboard.
Who are you and how did you get in here?
I'm the locksmith. And I'm the locksmith.
So thank you very much for that. Yeah, so I watched the Slumber Party Massacre. In fact, I actually know where I first saw the Slumber Party Massacre. A friend of mine was living in Dubbo in central New South Wales, which is a country town, and it takes like 10 hours to get to Sydney by train. And he sent me he actually phoned me up and said, I'm stuck for a year in this country town in this insurance office for the insurance company, and I'm going mad. Can you come up here and I'll give you free accommodation? Now, I was doing a bit of couch surfing then, so we went up there and we spent 8 months or so in Dubbo and had a great time, basically hanging out and being the two fanboys who were in town. And we went to the drive-in with some friends and saw the Slumber Party Massacre. Now, this is an interesting horror movie because it was written and directed by women, and it was for Roger Corman's company, so they put in the obligatory shower scenes right at the start of the film and that kind of thing. But it subverts all the paradigms of a slasher film. The women are the ones who attack the monsters and things, and the guys are always the hopeless and hapless, screaming ones. And I kind of like the Slumber Party Massacre for that reason, because it did flip that narrative before anybody else was doing this kind of stuff. And it still works as a slasher film. Yeah, it was written by Rita Mae Brown. Yeah, absolutely, FG. It was written by Rita Mae Brown. They did change things a lot, but if you get a chance to, I think I saw it on Tubi or Plex. It might have been Plex. But if you get a chance to, the Slumber Party Massacre is well worth checking out. Oh, Dean Johnson says, Terry, watch the trailer for Conga. Is it really as bad as it seems? Yeah, it is, but it's entertaining as well. And it works because it is so hopelessly bad, and yet they decided to go where they went with it. If you can get a copy of Conga, you're going to have a little bit of a good time, but it's one of those movies which is enhanced if you can see it with other people. If you can't, that's fine. You're still going to have a good time, but it's a communal thing that you might want to enjoy. A commentary track on Battlefield Earth is hilarious. The director is convinced it's a great film. Yeah, well, maybe he was brainwashed by Scientology. Who knows? Was it Roger Christian? I think it was. But he does Dutch angles and shaky cam and dumb stuff like that, I believe. But for me, it's kind of repugnant to me. L. Ron Hubbard was an asshole in several directions. If you've seen the Paul Thomas Anderson movie, The Master, you get a very good kind of alternate view of the kind of person L. Ron Hubbard was. Pair Gongo with Gorgo, the British Godzilla. Yeah, so I like Gorgo a lot better than I like Conga. I think Gorgo really does have that third act escalation, which is kind of useful, and it's very, very British, and I kind of like that, where they kind of go, okay, we're going to have a giant monster. We've seen Godzilla, we've seen a whole bunch of other ones, we've seen King Kong. Let's get a British one where they put it in a little circus down by the waterfront in London, and then let it go to town on London. Yeah, it kind of works, and I think it's kind of appropriate too, because the original Godzilla was at least partly about Japan's trauma of being bombed during World War II. Yeah, they were in the wrong and all that kind of thing, but the Japanese civilian population's trauma of being bombed during World War II, and Britain, of course, was bombed during World War II. So having a monster destroying parts of London was one of those ideas that really needed to work, and it very much did. Excuse me for a second, just got to blow my nose. Wonderful product when I blow my nose live on a live stream. But yeah, Congo works, Gorgo works. I've really got to try to find a Blu-ray of Gorgo if there's one around. So Lee Lavery says, so now that the Queen has passed on, do you think Australia will become a republic anytime soon? I wanted us to be a republic when we had the referendum about in 2000, and then John Howard put up such a weak referendum question that was confusing. Nobody went in for it. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that should happen, and it's definitely something that's way past due. Dean says, can you comment on Toho's competitors? Toei, I like Toei as a studio as well. They did a whole bunch of movies with Japanese ghosts in them, yokai and things like that. Toho and Toei are really interesting. There's also Daiei, I think it is, which did the Daimajin movies. Yeah, that's I love those three studios. I love studios in Japan that back when Japan was recovering in the post-war period, usually about 20 years after the war, in fact, 15 years after the war, were putting out these really interesting ghost stories and horror stories and monster stories. I mean, there are things like Kwaidan, which is one of the best horror movies ever made. And I've done a video about Kwaidan. I think I did it on my 24 hours, or it might not have been, but you can look back and find that. Kwaidan is definitely a movie you should see because it builds atmosphere like nothing else, and it builds it on a smallish budget. In fact, when we went to Tokyo in 2019, I gave Sal a day off from looking after me and went to Toho Studios and took my photo in front of the Godzilla statue. There's an enormous Godzilla mural on one of the walls of Toho Studios. And there's also another mural on another one of the walls of the Seven Samurai. And these are like 3 or 4 story high murals. They're not little things. And just going there, it really was one of those things where you feel, as a movie buff, you're in a sacred place. Toho Studios. There's no tours of Toho Studios, anything like that. It's a working, operating studio. And if you look right down the back, you go to where the driveway used to go down the back of the studio. Right down the back of the studio is like a 4-meter high mural of Mothra. So that was pretty good. No, the worst movie is coming in, Alan. The worst movie is coming toward the end of the live stream. And Middle-Aged Geek Girl is going to remind me to talk about that movie. So Emily says, love Kwaidan. A college professor friend of mine showed part of his Japanese literature class. Yeah, absolutely. Kwaidan is one of those movies that when people talk about horror movies, they tend to ignore. But shit, it's good. Where's the cat? Luna's around somewhere, but she had a very busy day yesterday. She's one of those mad cats that goes out in the rain. So she was out in the rain and hiding under bushes and things all last night until really late. We had to go and try to find her. And eventually Middle-Aged Geek Girl lured her out with a laser beam. So she's a bit tired today. Have I seen A24's Men? Not yet. I want to see it. I think it's an interesting concept. And I want to see how it plays out. But it's definitely one. I'm very fond of a lot of the output that A24 as a studio is doing because they're small enough to be able to take chances without bankrupting the entire studio. And they're actually showing some stuff that's got a little bit of grounding underneath it in social commentary, which I appreciate in a lot of their films as well. Did you find vomit under the desk, Middle-Aged Geek Girl? That's not good. No wonder they were hungry this morning. They'd emptied their guts out under your desk. Lee Lavery says, Jesse Buckley is amazing. Thank you, Lee. I'm going to definitely try to find a copy of Men and watch it. I think it's got Rory Kinnear in it. Is it Rory Kinnear is the other person? Could be. But yeah, definitely should review that darn cat. And I got traumatized by watching Disney live action movies when I was a kid. Toho's Latitude Zero is mad. It's got Patricia Medina and Joseph Cotton and Cesar Romero in it. And it's based on this intellectual property from Japan that nobody in Western countries knew about. And it's got like Joseph Cotton plays like a 150-year-old guy living in an underwater city. It's really crazy. And yeah, absolutely. It's got everything, Friday. Brian says, Mrs. and I worried to leave our cats out at night, even in a fenced yard due to raccoons and intruder cats. We don't leave them out at night. We get them in before bedtime. And if we hear any cat noises, we can go out and beat up the other cats. But they, because they're girl cats, they stay in our yard. And even though what they do is they gang up on any other cats that come into the yard. The 2 cats, Luna and Jill, gang up on them and kind of, they're like the Jets versus the Sharks in West Side Story. So they tend to do that, and they're pretty much okay. We make sure we don't leave them out at night because we can't supervise them. And they don't tend to kill birds, which is one of the concerns we have here because we have a lot of native birds that are getting slightly endangered, and so we make sure that the cats don't get birds. No problems with deadly Aussie creatures. Well, no, there's not really any deadly creatures around here. There are some snakes. In fact, one of the interesting things is a lot of places around Australia, you have to call a snake guy to come in and take snakes out if there are snakes around your house. And there are snakes in our area. They tend to, there's some venomous ones, but there aren't many of them. But our local council has a free snake getting rid of service now. I just found out. And so they'll, if you see a snake around your property, they'll come in and they'll grab the snake for you, which is a lovely bit of thing our rates pay for. But no, I mean, spiders are around, but they, you just deal with them. It's really not a problem at all for us. Let's see what else we've got here. 1995 Kiss of Death remake is definitely not great, especially Nicolas Cage. Any 1990 remakes I enjoyed. Oh, shit, you put me on the spot there. I tend to go to the original gangsters, with the only exception. I tend to go to the original versions of things because I like what they do. And they're the reason remakes get made, because those movies are so good. The only remake that really works for me is The Maltese Falcon. It was the third version of the Dashiell Hammett story. There were two of them made in the 1930s, and in 1941, John Huston made The Maltese Falcon. But 1990s, can't remember any off the top of my head. Friday says, Matango doesn't get enough love. Only cinema based on William Hope Hodgson's story. Yeah. Matango is great, and it's got that, like people singing and playing the ukulele on the boat before things get weird, and the mushroom, everybody turning into mushrooms. It is a mad hallucinogenic movie, but it's a lot of fun in that wonderful Toho 1960 style. Matango would be a great name for a cat. Yeah, I mean, it's a mushroom, so. We just tend to give our cats kind of prosaic names. We named Luna after Luna from Sailor Moon because I'm a big Sailor Moon fan. And then we found out that every second person named their cat after Luna from Sailor Moon. But the Wicker Man remake is amazing. Yeah, the Wicker Man remake is shit. And they turned it into a kind of men's rights horror story. Doesn't play well, and it's not Nicolas Cage's finest hour. But the original still has that magic. It's still wonderful. Middle-aged Get Girl says, yes, and Luna is short for lunatic. Yes, she is a lunatic. I've got to admit, she is a mad cat. But let's see what else we've got on the watched movie list. This really shit 1992 movie by Charles Band called The Lost Empire. I'd heard about it, but I hadn't seen it. It's one of those absolute zero budget movies, which has a whole bunch of buxom actresses who are in their 30s and 40s running around in skimpy clothing and getting unclad. And it's kind of like Enter the Dragon meets a kind of Lost World thing. And it's incredibly bad. It was hypnotically bad. And the actresses aren't very good. And one of them has so much silicone injected into her busty substances that it looks like she's about to burst, and it's incredibly uncomfortable to watch. Plenty of awful remakes, Dean says. 2000 Planet of the Apes and reboot Star Trek. Any sequels I like? I mean, you got to go with the classics. Aliens I like. I definitely like the Two Jakes, the sequel to Chinatown. I think even though that one isn't perfect, it's an honorable sequel to the original movie. I mean, I like long-running series. I mean, all of the James Bond films after Doctor No technically are sequels, and I like them. I'm interested to see what they do with James Bond. They're looking at like actors who are in their 30s and 40s. They're not going with young James Bond for the next James Bond. So I'm going to be interested in seeing what Eon Productions does with that. Friday James says, just introduced friends of Children of the Stones. Describe them as a Wicker Man and kids' TV. Did it ever get shown in Australia? It may have, but I don't think I watched it. I really would like to dive more into that kind of thing. Anyway, he says, have you seen Andor? I think it's great. I don't watch Star Wars stuff. I think Star Wars is shit. I think that Lucas originally stole from much better writers without giving them credit or attribution or money. And there's, it's just not my thing. Lee Sobronic says the remake of Nightmare Alley was good. Yeah, I've got that on Blu-ray, and I'm looking forward to it. It's in the pile to be watched. And yeah, it's I like Nightmare Alley. In fact, I've read the novel. Sally's middle-aged geek girl also listened to the audio novel of Nightmare Alley, the original Lindsay William Gresham one. It's time for a Welsh Bond, says Lee Lavery. Aidan Turner, Poldark. I don't know. It's Friday. James says Children of the Stones is on YouTube. I'm going to have to check that out. Nearly had a Welsh Bond stand back. I did a whole video on other guys who could have played James Bond. You might want to look back in the archive and find that one. Have I seen the new Hellraiser? Don't call me sir, please. Please don't call me sir. Not yet, but I like the idea of the non-gender specific Pinhead. I think that's canon accurate because of the way Clive Barker wrote the original novel. And I do like the actress who plays the character. But yeah, Timothy Dalton was a Welshman. Yeah, he was. Come to think of it, Brian. Yeah, he was a good taffy guy. I mean, half of my ancestry is Welsh, so that's perfectly valid. Let's see, what else could you have as a James? We had an Australian one, and that didn't go well because he was badly advised. And ever since, nah, you can't call me sir. I'm Australian. We're egalitarian, and we don't respond well to that. But yeah, Clem Clark. Yeah, I do want to see the Hellraiser, and I think that it works for me. And I kind of like dipping into that extreme horror sometimes. Here we go. I'm going to hide that one from the stream. Okay. We got the porn butts are here. Yay. No, I am the isolate. Don't worry about it. I mean, it's cultural differences. And Lee says Dalton was born not far from me. Small world. Yeah, it's a small world, but I'd hate to have to paint it, you know. And it's a really weird thing. Really scary movie, The Ghost of Mr. Chicken. No, it isn't. It's a Don Knotts movie. It's like The Love God. And even though it is fun to watch The Ghost of Mr. Chicken, it's not scary at all. And I kind of like Don Knotts doing those few movies that he did. What's the other one where he played a fish, Mr. Limpet, Mr. Limpet? But yeah, I mean, that was the kind of movie we saw on Saturday morning matinees, at the Saturday noon matinees at the cinema when I was a kid. Yeah, yeah. George Lazenby did. He was in Perth. He started making some really rude and lewd comments at a live event in Perth recently, where he's talking about which actresses he'd stooped and all sorts of other things. I couldn't get much detail on what he actually said, but they hustled him off stage and cancelled him for future engagements in that tour. So yeah, I think George may be self-medicating a little bit and also really off because of his advanced years. 6 configurations of the Hellraiser box actually in storage. I think they are. I think it's definitely canon, and it's where they, the Lament configuration and the other ones are definitely part of that. Thunder Rock, directed by Roy Bolton, 1942. No, I've seen Thunder Road, which I recommend with Robert Mitchum, but I haven't seen Thunder Rock. But I'm writing that down because I like Roy Bolton's stuff. And incredibly strong politics and morality. Cool. Let me check that out. Got a little notebook here, Thunder Rock. I can definitely find a copy of it because I have various nefarious ways of doing that. But let's see, what else have I been watching besides the things I've mentioned already. So Lost Emperor I don't recommend. I watched one of those, those 1930s hygiene movies where there were like anti-marijuana ones and anti-sex ones and VD ones, and I saw a thing called Sex Madness, which was on Plex or Tubi. I was kind of switching between the two for a while there, and it's horrible. It's about syphilis and the peril of syphilis, and it's from 1938, directed by Dwayne Esper, who directed a lot of these movies. And these old hygiene films were kind of weird and really odd, and they did this weird thing where they would show burlesque dancers because they could get away with doing the titillating stuff if they also had a moral message about syphilis in them. So they had that. And apparently, here's a fact, and I don't know how accurate a fact it is, but it's in the movie. 1938, 1 in 10 American men had syphilis, which explains so much of early 20th century America. But they show some weird things in that, like people with syphilitic cankers on their bodies and babies covered in syphilitic sores. It is a horrible movie to watch, but it's 1938, so what can you do? Lee Larry says, watch Dark City. What an amazing film. I was never impressed with Dark City. Alex Proyas blocked me from Facebook. But I can understand that. People like Dark City, but it's not my kind of thing. Hygiene movies were brilliantly parodying Amazon Women on the Moon. Absolutely, with Carrie Fisher and Mike Mazurski sitting on Mike Mazurski's knee. Yeah, they perfectly parodied those hygiene films. Like they're a vulgar pleasure, let's say. Yeah, Capone had syphilis at the end. I actually went to Alcatraz, and I went to the ward where Al Capone died of tertiary syphilis. Not on the Lost Emperor. I think it was on the Lost Kingdom. I think it is. What are my thoughts on Terrifier 2? Haven't seen it. Haven't seen Terrifier 1. Haven't seen Terrifier 2. Movies about STDs. Now that's scary. Yeah, they were. Marijuana, weed with its roots in hell, is a fun one because it's got a skinny dipping scene that they got away with in it in the 1930s. Where to sit through the last prom and driving class in high school. Truly horrific film with several meanings in the term. Yeah, those kind of safety films. They've got an ad they do now, which is for learning first aid, and they've got a guy waist deep in a creek looking for his drowned kid, and it's phrased almost like a hygiene film or a horror film, with this guy screaming while he's looking for his kid and he finds his dead kid in the creek. It's those things. Have I seen Burgess Meredith informing us how GI should behave in the UK? No, I haven't seen that one. Post a link if you've got it, because I'll be interested in looking at that one. There are also World War II VD films for the army, and in there, one of the extras you've got in that scene is George Reeves, who played Superman later on. So I watched Sex Madness, which I don't recommend you watching if you're eating. And then I went with a vulgar pleasure from the 1970s, because 1970s vulgar pleasures are my bag in a lot of ways. And I saw this one in the cinema for my sins. Amsterdam is what I'm worried about. I'd be interested to see what Amsterdam does, because I think it's an interesting concept. British PSA from the 70s, scary stuff, yeah. But anyway, this 1970s movie I saw is by Bruce Kimmel. And it is kind of a sweet, dumb, small budget musical. It's called The First Nudie Musical. And it's got full frontal nudity in it, singing and dancing dildos. It's really mad stuff. If you haven't seen The First Nudie Musical, it's on Tubi at the moment. And, don't watch it when kids are around, because there's like dicks and minges in there. But it's a lot of fun. The songs and the dances are funny. It's got Cindy Williams in it. It's got Ron Howard doing a cameo in a movie with lots of full frontal female nudity in it. Kind of fun and kind of sweet and innocent almost in this way. It's a really weird little film, but I'll have a weird fondness for it. Colin, I'm doing the worst movie of 2022 towards the end of the live stream, because I didn't want people to miss out at the start. But that one's kind of a horror movie that's worse than Martyrs. In fact, the worst movie of 2022. I'll give you a little foreshadowing there. Watched an Italian crime flick this week, Rome, the Other Face of Violence. Was really good until the gratuitous 10-minute gang rape scene that just went on and on. Damn near ruined the film. Yep, I can see how that would. If you want a good Italian crime movie to watch, and you can find it, go for The Italian Connection, otherwise known as La Mala Ordina, with Mario Adorf. It's got Woody Strode in it. It's got Henry Silva in it. Best Italian crime movie I know of. Did I know that all vampires are make-believe, unless you count Dracula? Have I got a rim shot on here? Hang on a second. I'll read that again. It won't be a tick. Did you know all vampires are make-believe unless you count Dracula? There we go. I think you'll find the one from Sesame Street counts too. See, I've got rim shots in here as well. I've got everything on this soundboard. I love it, and I can adapt it as I choose to do. But yeah, first nudie musical, I recommend that a lot. If I were to visit your country from the USA, what would I recommend you do first? You probably land at Sydney, so you get one of Harry's pies from Harry's Cafe de Wheels. Then you walk down along the harbour waterfront, and then you have a good time there. And just kind of open yourself. This is what we do when we travel. We try not to plan too much of what we're doing unless we have to organise accommodation and airfares. Wander around the city and just find things that you wouldn't find if you were going on a tour, would be my advice. Thor: Love and Thunder, worst film of 2022, says Paul Cook. No, it's not. It's bad, but it's not the worst. Yep, rim shots. I love rim shots.
It's good to be the king.
That's not the rim shot because I moved away from the soundboard. Got a few other things on the soundboard too. Let's have a look here. I've got this one. So if I make a joke and nobody gets it, I can go like this. And there's applause. Sad trombone. I should play a sad trombone for some of these jokes coming through. I've got scary music. If a joke doesn't land, I've got this. And I've got harps. And he says, first nudie musical was shown at the local late night rep theatre with Flesh Gordon back in the 80s. Yeah, I like Flesh Gordon as well. In fact, I was at the Australian premiere of Flesh Gordon, which was on at midnight at the Academy Twin Cinema in Paddington, Sydney. And they gave out that wonderful George Barr poster for Flesh Gordon. It's a fun movie. Cloud Clark says, I love Thor movies, but the last one passed on going in the theatre. I did a review of it, and basically what Thor: Love and Thunder is it's kind of like a vanity project for Chris Hemsworth and Taika Waititi. I think that they got self-indulgent with it, and Marvel let them because they were making money. But I don't think it's in any way good. What was that American Voice sample? That was Mel Brooks.
It's good to be the king.
That's what that one was. I mean, the original uncut version of Flesh Gordon was fun. The claymation peril was stalwart. Yeah, I mean, I've seen both versions of Flesh Gordon, and I like Flesh Gordon. I think it does this weird thing that most adult films don't do. In fact, by being a very accurate parody of Flash Gordon, there's accuracy in the things that it's parodying. Let's see. Susan Fields was wonderful in that part. Susan Fields was not a good actress. I mean, yeah, she was pretty, but yeah, not really. What you call a good actor. Jason Williams wasn't either. But I kind of like it anyway. I like the Penosaurus monster. I like the big monster. I like pretty much everything about it. Ian Gray says, hi, Terry. You're looking forward to seeing Halloween Ends and Barbarian coming out soon in Australia. Any other movies you recommend seeing in the cinemas soon? I'd like to see the prequel to X Pearl. Those ones aren't on my radar particularly, but I'm going to see a couple of films. Yeah, great inimitable voice has Mel, says Alan Ford.
It's good to be the king.
Haven't had cool vampires other than Dracula, Baron Meinster, Dr. Ravner, Camilla Karnstein, Lord Dewitt. Absolutely. And here come the sex bots again. Maybe it's because we mentioned Flesh Gordon. But I'll let middle-aged geek or swat those buggers down. But we'll segue on to the things that I'm going to be watching. Now, for me going to the cinema, I'm going to go to Gold Class, which is the one where you get the reclining seats. There's a little more distance between you and other people in the cinema, which is good from COVID point of view. Still haven't caught the spicy coffin. I'm hoping to dodge it forever. But yeah, so I'm going Gold Class for these ones. And because I'm over a certain age, I get cheap tickets. And I also have a loyalty card, which helps pay the tickets sometimes. So I'm kind of getting in very cheaply to these movies. So I've got two movies I've already booked tickets for because I want to see them. The first one is Black Adam, which is the DC movie with Dwayne Johnson. It's also got Pierce Brosnan and a bunch of other people. A lot of DC Justice Society superheroes are in this one. But I'm looking forward to seeing that one because I want to see a big tentpole superhero movie in a cinema. And that one I managed to get a cheap ticket for, so I'm going to see that early next month. And I'm also going to actually, I'll answer a couple of these things. Jess Franco. Yeah, Jess Franco was fun. Penosaurus is all I can remember from Flesh Gordon. How disturbing is that? Yeah, it is, because there are also things that are like Prince Precious, the gay rightful king of the planet porno. I like Prince Precious because even though they have him as a comic character, they treat his sexuality as a reasonable thing, and I like that a lot. Keep dodging. Long COVID is an undiscovered country. We can all do with that. Absolutely, I'm going to do what I can for that. Harlan Ellison's remake was in Flesh Gordon as an extra. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff. B.J. Trimble, who worked on Star Trek, I think, did the costumes for Flesh Gordon. Yeah, so he kind of like, yeah, here on Black Adam. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going in with no expectations. I think that it's interesting they've had some trailers, but there hasn't been a lot of buzz built about it. So I'm going in with very low expectation. I'm just going to go for the roller coaster ride that these movies are. And the other movie I'm going to see is Black Panther Wakanda Forever, because I am a big fan of Namor, Prince the Submariner. And I have been ever since the old Grant Ray cartoons back in the day. And so I'm going to see that. I like Tenoch playing a different Namor, who has a kind of Mesoamerican background. I think that's an interesting twist. The problem with making Namor as a character in a Marvel movie is that you've got to differentiate from Aquaman. Excuse me. And I think that does it effectively. I think it's really a smart move to give him a non-white background, because he's not necessarily a white guy. Even though originally Namor looked like this, and I've got this model. There's my Prince Namor of Atlantis model, which I picked up, oddly enough, in Japan, because I'm a big Namor fan. See, he's got the wings on his feet. That's your old school Namor. And the Tenoch one from Wakanda Forever looks very different than that in a lot of ways. But I'm looking forward to seeing that interpretation. I am such an enormous fan of Namor, and have been since those Grant Ray cartoons in the 1960s. Let's see. Have I seen a movie called Kentucky Fried Movie? Yes, I saw it in the cinemas. I've got a copy of it on DVD. Kentucky Fried Movie is a great thing. Yeah, interesting thing. I think it's called Talokan. The MCU version of Atlantis is Talokan. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it as well. I think that Ryan Coogler is a fine director. The visuals I've seen in the trailers for Wakanda Forever are mind-blowingly good. And they even get it right with Namor's feet by having the wings on it. Even though some people are going to see that as absurd, but it's definitely part of the character. And I really want to see it. I'm going to love what that looks like. Old school Namor looks like buff Mr. Spock in a Speedo. Yeah, absolutely. And that's it. He always had that kind of pixie elfin look. And I think that the more grounded look that Tenoch brings to it is really interesting. You know, it's such a smart move by Marvel. Marvel is so strategic and clever in dodging a lot of, if not all of, the bullets that are, or the landmines that are in the path of making these films. And by having a kind of Mexican, Central American style of Namor and of the alternative Atlantis Talokan is really, really clever. I think it's inclusive. It brings in some fine actors like Tenoch. I've seen one other thing, I think, and I think he is a fine actor. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to go for the ride. I like what they're doing with Wakanda. I'm not sure, but I don't think Shuri is a new Black Panther. They've got a female Black Panther, but I don't believe it is Shuri, but for various reasons. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that and the whole experience of a big Marvel movie again. I'm actually enjoying She-Hulk as well. I'm watching She-Hulk Attorney at Law, and that took a really big twist in this week's episode, which addresses a whole bunch of social commentary stuff and social issues of our current times, that in a very interesting way. Yeah, I'm also going to watch Werewolf by Night. Disney Plus just dropped the Werewolf by Night special, the Halloween special they're doing, based on the comic character from the old comics. So I think Mike Plug did the artwork for them back in the day, but I'm really looking forward to watching Werewolf at Night tonight. Well, after I finish this video, in fact. Because I read the comics back in the day. I really like the comics. It's Marvel in a more supernatural mode than the usual ones, and Marvel is leaning into the horror and supernatural stuff a lot more on a lot of their projects at the moment. But really, really looking forward to Werewolf by Night because I like the character, I like the world, and yeah, I'm a kind of welded on Marvel fan, but I'm not uncritical about it. I can always knock a movie as wrong-headed as Thor: Love and Thunder, particularly when I'm looking at these things. Will Marvel ever get to the Tomb of Dracula? Brian Lindsay says possibly. It's there's a lot of Dracula out there, so they'd have to find a new spin on it, and that's a little tough to do in a very crowded market. Mr. Londo says, I'm not liking She-Hulk at all. Okay, one of the interesting things about Marvel stuff is not everything's going to be for everyone. So there are people who aren't going to feel that they're in the target demographic for particular projects, and that's fine. It's okay that happens. And Friday James says it's a very impressive piece of work. Yeah, I like it for a number of reasons. I like it for the fact that it really does skewer a lot of misogyny that's around, particularly in social media and in public space. And I think that that's a perfectly valid thing to do in any kind of fictional work, and particularly in a superhero work. It gives an interesting angle from which to attack that kind of idiocy. Dean Johnson says, speaking of Star Trek, I tried to watch Discovery. How dreadful. The Captain Pike-centric series seems like a home run. Your thoughts? I kind of like Star Trek Disco as a distraction from the main thrust of Star Trek. And jumping it 1,000 years into the future gives it a lot of clean air to reinvent itself. Strange New Worlds I like a lot. I like Anson Mount as Christopher Pike. I like the ensemble they build. I like the fact that he's kind of showing a kind of leadership where you get your experts in and listen to their advice before you make a decision. It's not as autocratic as Captain Kirk has been in canon Star Trek, but Anson Mount's Captain Pike is much more a good leader rather than a bold leader, if you know what I mean. And I like that. Toby Hines says, my copy of Virgin Witch and the Wicker Man came in earlier this week. Groovy. Absolutely, you're going to have fun with those. Yeah, Strange New Worlds is the best current Star Trek. I can see that. I hear a lot of good things about Lower Decks, the animated one, which is doing some interesting things. I haven't watched enough of that to really make a judgment about it, but yeah, Strange New Worlds. If you like old school Star Trek, I think you got to like that. Mr. London says, more interested in what Warner Brothers is going to get up to DC up and running. Yeah, Black Adam is going to be the one that'll probably tell that. If Black Adam is really successful, I think they'll take more DC movies in that direction. I enjoyed the Batman. A lot of people didn't, but I enjoyed it. Clone Clark says, I'm not watching any new Star Trek books. Fair enough. There's a lot of material out there. You don't have to necessarily watch everything that comes out. I try to, but I don't always succeed. Lee Lavery says, I like Lower Decks. I can see why people don't. And Friday says, today's Lower Decks episode is fantastic. Good. I'm going to binge them at some stage, but I haven't yet. Yeah, I tend to go down rabbit holes. So I did a thing where after I talked about Jarlath movies, I went down and watched 3 or 4 Jarlath movies. and went down that rabbit hole. Yeah, Lee Lavery says, I do like Lower Decks, but I can see why people don't. I haven't heard much criticism of it. I heard people say they haven't seen it, but I haven't heard much criticism of it among people who've seen it. But yeah, so I'm going to wander off and watch Werewolf by Night after this. I think I'm going to have to go out and buy some snack food and do it. Is that real coffee? It's Starbucks because I wanted some coffee shots and a big coffee hit. They don't do good coffee, but on the other hand, they got 5 shots in that glass, in that cup I've got. So that's great. Mr. Londo says, doing a Batman movie is easy. How about doing a proper origin story for Superman and getting it right? We don't need origin stories. I mean, we know Superman came from a planet that blew up and his mummy and daddy put him in a rocket ship. I'm not convinced that we need another origin story for Superman. I think telling a different kind of Superman story where you really put him in genuine peril rather than kind of an artificially manufactured peril. And you start getting into the guts of a stranger in a strange land aspect of Superman. You might be doing things interesting. Brian Lindsay says, different kinds of Star Trek captains reflect different realities. Look at the history of the Royal Navy, all sorts of different personality types held command. Yeah, absolutely. And I like the way Pike is being done because that inclusiveness plays really well to a modern audience. I mean, we've all had shitty bosses who make decisions arbitrarily without listening to the people who know shit. And seeing reflected in a Star Trek series, the perfect boss in a sense, who's an imperfect human being but knows how to listen and how to take in a whole bunch of different opinions and a whole bunch of different expertise and then kind of coalesce it into a decision. I think that is a wish fulfillment for anybody who's ever had a bad boss. Lee Lavery says, I've sampled an Australian delicacy, golden syrup dumplings. Think I'm still recovering. I don't like golden syrup. I had it too much as a kid because it was cheap. Yeah, and Lovely says, middle-aged good girl says she had golden syrup dumplings when she was a kid. I've never had them. I've had golden syrup on crumpets and on toast, but I was never big on golden syrup. Franny James says, origin stories are a mistake that held back superhero movies for ages. Absolutely. And the good thing about origin stories from the movie maker's point of view is you get to be a smarty pants and show off. Yeah, you can redo Batman's mummy and daddy getting killed in the alley near the theater and try to do a smarty pants bit of direction on that. But I don't know why you should. Dean Johnson says, origin movies, the studios need to get over it. How many times do we have to suffer through another Spider-Man origin? That was a really good thing they did with the Tom Holland Spider-Man is they never did the origin. Everyone knew it from the previous couple of series, if not from the television movies in the 1970s and the cartoons and things like that, and from the comic books originally. You don't need the origin story. Just move on with it. Yeah, absolutely, Max Payne. I want to see more movie franchises that move on rather than do entire backstories. Yeah, I'm not that big on origin stories, to be honest with you. Steampunk says, I love the old Grant Ray cartoons. They were cool. They're cheap, original artwork, original writers. Yeah, they worked and they got people involved in it. There was nothing like that being shown on television at the time. And I like the fact that they went with comics that were contemporary at the time and just ran with them, even though they did it cheaply. Clark, have you ever watched a certain scientific railgun or a certain magical index? No, I haven't. What are they? Friday, didn't realize that the line on golden syrup logo was from the Bible and from Samson and the dots are bees. Yeah, I'm triggered by golden syrup because I had to eat so much of it because it was cheap when we didn't have much food. Do I have a favorite Francois Truffaut film? I went to Francois Truffaut's grave in Père Lachaise Cemetery. Favorite one, I do have a weird fondness for Fahrenheit 451. I kind of like that one. 400 Blows is a very hard movie for me to watch because of my own childhood, but I admire it a lot. So I'd say 400 Blows. Peter Cushing says, a few old 1970 film DVDs. House of Mortal Sins. Is that the one with Doug McClure in it? Revenge from 1971, Assault from 1971, Craze 1973. I've got Craze. Jack Palance going mad in England. Yeah, those ones. Were they Amicus? A lot of those sound like Amicus ones. Yeah, they were. I got to see a lot of those in the 1970s when I went to the cinema. I watched a lot of horror cinema, and Craze was definitely among them. I know I've seen House of Mortal Sin, but I'm not sure if I've seen Revenge and Assault. Dean Johnson, what do you think of the Space Angel Clutch Cargo style of animation? I kind of have a fondness for Synchrovox, it's called. It's weird and it's really fucked up. But let's see. Ross Gilton said, I saw a bunch of Truffaut's films recently. Jules and Jim was a true standout. Still haven't seen Jules and Jim. I've got a copy of it. It's on the pile to be watched, but I'm looking forward to watching Jules and Jim. Okay, let's move on a little bit to haulage. Actually, I'll do these first. Misheard the title of Black Adam earlier for a second. I thought it was Blackadder. Yeah, The Rock in Blackadder would be fun. Last great film by Peckinpah, Cross of Iron. Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I do want to see it. There is a new release coming out of The Killer Elite, one of the late Peckinpah films. Imprint is putting it out at the end of the year. I'm getting a copy of it. But these two movies I watched, actually, we'll call it one. Here's a 1980s action film I'm recommending. It's kind of almost a remake of Laura in some ways, but I really like it a lot. Sharky's Machine with Burt Reynolds. He directed it. He'd been doing a lot of comedies at this time, and he decided to make a crime movie again. Good stunt work, really interesting ensemble in this one, because you've got actors like Brian Keith, Charles Durning, Earl Holliman, Bernie Casey, Henry Silver, Daryl Hickman, Richard Libertini, and Rachel Ward. Now, one of the reasons I love this movie is the soundtrack is full of really great needle drops. It's got a whole bunch of jazz in it, which may not be everyone's taste, but it works really well in context, and a lot of contemporary music as well at the time. Sharky's Machine is one of the kind of underrated Burt Reynolds movies. Reynolds as a director is good, Brian. He really does do it well, the action scenes, and also he does a lot of good stuff with. They filmed it in Atlanta, so we find some really gritty street locations. The location scout on this one was really good, and he films it really well. I think Burt Reynolds was. The butterfly knife, Mr. Londo, is really, really creepy in that movie. There's some really gritty stuff in there, but the needle drops. I love the soundtrack for Sharky's Machine. It works for me really well. One of the things I should mention is towards the end of the year, Umbrella Entertainment, who send me movies, which is marvelous, are putting out a whole bunch of Burt Reynolds movies, including Stroker Race and things like that, in a box set called The Box of Burt. And they're doing Cannonball Run 1 and 2, a whole bunch of other films, all on DVD, all on Blu-ray, all with a lot of extras, but they're adding extra things to it. Does anyone remember that Burt Reynolds did a nude centerfold for Playgirl magazine? They're doing a car air freshener in the shape of a naked Burt Reynolds from that, so you can stick it up in your car. And they got bumper stickers you can get with it that say "Honk if you love Burt." So they're putting movie posters in there as well. It's a marvelous box set of Burt Reynolds stuff that they're putting up for Christmas, and they promised me a copy of it, which is wonderful. But Sharky's Machine. Yeah, Stick is good too, by the way, Alan. I agree, Alan Ford. Stick is another good Burt Reynolds movie of the era. There are some really gritty things he did. That and Shamus is another one. He did a few really good crime things in between doing all the comedy stuff he did. Reincarnation of Peter Proud with Michael Sarrazin and Margot Kidder. Did I watch that recently? I think I did, and I wasn't terribly impressed with it. But we can disagree on that. That's true. Yeah, Richard Hart says Sharky's Machine. Yeah, absolutely, it's great. I believe I got the soundtrack on either CD or vinyl. I know I've got it somewhere in the back of the Man Cave. Man Cave's going to get a restyling at some stage over the summer. I'm going to put a few things in. I've got a new turntable I want to put in. So I want to be able to access the records a lot easier than I can right now. White Lightning, I agree, Mr. Londell. White Lightning is another good one. Jay Ward did a send-up of the Playgirl Cinephilt starring Bullwinkle and a big board in Hollywood. Yeah. In fact, it turns up in Slumber Party Massacre. The teenage sister of one of the female protagonists is reading Playgirl magazine and looking at the centerfold in the movie. Things that can never be seen in any movie. Henry Silver as a wimpy milk toast. Roger Moore for the packeteering truck driver. Yeah. Henry Silver, who died recently. The movies to watch for Henry Silver are, as I said before, The Italian Connection, otherwise known as La Mala Ordina, and also Johnny Cool. If you can get a copy of Johnny Cool with Henry Silver in it, it's crazy. And it was directed by William Asher, who directed Bewitched, and his wife, Elizabeth Montgomery, starred in it just before they made Bewitched. It's a really interesting film, and it's got lots of kind of celebrity cameos at the time. They have a great scene where one of the gangsters who was getting killed is swimming in a swimming pool, and a suitcase bomb gets thrown into the swimming pool and blows the side out of the swimming pool. Really interesting film. Yeah, Janet Brewster said, heard that Henry Silver just died in September. One of those guys who never disappointed even a crap movie. Yeah, he committed to the roles and did a really nice job in them. I mean, yeah, he kind of had that self-awareness to know he was only going to get a certain type of movie, and he ran with it. Absolutely. Any thoughts on The Man Who Loved Women? Let's see, Man Who Loved Women. I know a movie called The Man Who Had Power Over Women with Rod Taylor, but I'm not sure about The Man Who Loved Women. Can you give me more information? Yep, Henry Silver in Amazon Women on the Moon. Absolutely. He could take the piss out of himself, and I respect that. Peter Christian, would I do a music collection video? Seem to know the stuff might be outside the remit of the channel. It's possible I might do it. I've got a lot of things like that I could do, but at the moment I'm kind of steering in a slightly different direction, but it's definitely a solid idea and I respect it. Henry Silver was a lifeguard who saved Sinatra's life. No, it wasn't. That was Brad Dexter. He was in Hawaii on a movie after a movie and holidaying in Hawaii with Sinatra, and Sinatra got caught in the water, and Brad Dexter rescued him and got a continued movie career afterwards by doing that. Silver was outstanding in The Boss. Here's the lead one with the two emotional states: stony face, coldness, or molten anger. Absolutely. Did I see Bert's TV show Dan August? Yeah, I did. I also saw him in Riverboat with Darren McGavin back in the 1950s. I used to have VHS copies of a few episodes of Riverboat. That's the good trivia question. Who was the first captain of the Enterprise on television? And the answer is Darren McGavin in the TV series Riverboat, because the Riverboat was called the Enterprise. But yeah, I mean, Burt Reynolds did so much. He was in Skullduggery as well, that really weird movie about an alternative human race living in the jungles. Front James Truffaut movie. It starts with many women attending a man's burial. They also have one of them love. Film travels in a flashback on Bertrand's life and love affairs. Okay, yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen Man Who Loved Women, but I should. There are just so many rabbit holes to dive down with cinema, and I really enjoy it. But yeah, so we'll finish up on Sharky's Machine. Let's have a look at some of the stuff that I have received lately, because I want to get some of this stuff. Yeah, a lot of different ethnicities that Silver could play. He was Puerto Rican. Let's see what we got. I'll just put them there. Some of these I bought, some of these I got given. Vincent Price double feature, The Tingler and the Mad Magician. Umbrella put this out. Incredibly bare bones. It's Region B, but the copy of The Tingler I had was on DVD rather than Blu-ray, so I got that because I also wanted Mad Magician. Both recommended, both really good, and they're fairly cheap here in Australia. If you got a multi-region, hang on, let me turn that the right way around. If you got a multi-region, that's not the right way around. If you got a multi-region player, you're going to do right with that. Let's see. This one I got from Indicator. It's been recommended to me, but I'd seen it before, and it's a really good conspiracy movie from the 1970s, which has let's see, Jeff Bridges, John Huston, Anthony Perkins, Eli Wallach, Sterling Hayden, Dorothy Malone, Thomas Millian, Belinda Bauer, Ralph Meeker, Toshiro Mifune, and Richard Boone. How can you not love that? Winter Kills. Really good conspiracy theory movie from 1979. And Indicator have put that out. They've even got a book about it. There's a little bit of your Anthony Perkins in there. So they've got like a booklet explaining it. Lots and lots and lots of extras. There's the inside of the box. This one's a recommend from me. Little bit of a hidden gem. I'm going to do a full review on that one at some stage in the future. When 8 Bells Told, Anthony Perkins as a James Bond type. Yeah, I like it when 8 Bells Told. I think it works, and Tony Perkins is really good at it. It's a road not traveled in the career of Anthony Perkins to do more action films like that. Am I going to wire up my chair to watch The Tingler for a full movie experience? No. Because you'd have to have someone else there to kind of tingle it at the right time. Dan August was shown late at night on British TV in the 70s, the last program before closing down. Didn't that piss you off at the time that they actually closed down TV channels? Even when I was a teenager and staying up late, I got pissed off when TV channels ended, and I didn't have VHS in those days. I've never heard of Winter Kill. Yeah, definitely Winter Kills. You can get it from zavi.com.au or zavi.com if you're in other areas, so you should be able to pick it up fairly cheaply because the UK pound is tanking at the moment. I really do need to see Winter Kills based on a Conan novel. Conan also wrote The Manchurian Candidate. Absolutely, Winter Kills works. I don't think it's a perfect movie. I don't think it's the best movie in the world, but I think it's a good, honest, hidden gem with a killer cast as well. Now, these ones I'm going to do a full review on because I want to. Better to close down the channel than play interminable infomercials. Yeah, show old movies. I used to do that here. They do infomercials now on a lot of these channels, but showing old movies was great because you could see so many old movies in really weird times of day. So I miss that in television channels, which is why I don't watch television channels anymore. These are a couple of Japanese films that I like. Yeah, God bless the conservatives for their shit fiscal policies. Yeah, they've always had shit fiscal policies. But now the lunatic fringe of the shit is running things. A couple of Japanese time travel movies I'm going to do bigger reviews on. This one's from about 2004. It's called Summer Time Machine Blues, which is put out by a new Australian company, which is put out this and a couple of Johnny Toe movies. Now, what's the company called? It's Chameleon Films. They're a little Australian company. And this one's about a bunch of college students who find a time machine. They're members of the science fiction club at the school. And it's a comedy, it's silly, and things that happen in the first time iteration make sense when they go back in time and change things and try to save things. The whole premise is that they want to, it's a really, really hot summer, and they're in this science fiction club, and they spill Coca-Cola on the remote control for their air conditioner. And then they find a time machine and decide to go back and get a new remote for the air conditioner because there's an old air conditioner. They don't make the remotes anymore. And so they've got to go back in time and do this. It's a bit of fun. It's very light. It's silly. It's funny. It's sweet. And I like it. And they also give you a booklet about it. I always like booklets and these things, particularly if there's something with which I'm unfamiliar. But Chameleon Films, you might want to look that up because they're doing a few interesting things. I think they're a small company that needs encouraging. This other one is a high recommend from me. I will get to the stream in a moment, but this one's really big recommend. It's who put this out? Let's have a look. It's Third Window Films. Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes. This is a recent. It was made during the pandemic. It's a recent science fiction movie from Japan. You got to check out. Basically, the premise is that a guy runs a cafe and lives upstairs in an apartment, and the TV downstairs and the TV in his apartment are on the same circuit. And then he discovers that the TV upstairs is showing the feed from the TV in the cafe, but 2 minutes ahead. So basically, he can look into the future. And the movie has the camera and the actors moving out of the cafe, up the stairs, into the apartment, and then back down again. And they do these incredible long takes of the 2-minute time loop. And they've got to remember what they did in the 2 minutes ahead they watched and do it. And they get involved with the Yakuza, they get involved with other problems. It's a really tightly filmed little movie. I think it was made in Tokyo, but by a group of people from Osaka. And it's kind of like One Shot of the Dead. Yeah, the Japanese zombie movie, which is about people making a movie about zombies and then a zombie apocalypse starts. But Beyond the Infinite 2 minutes, you got to see this one. It's fantastic. I'm going to do a full review on that one as well. Let's have a look at the chat. Let's see. US cable TV after 1 a.m. is almost all infomercials. Same here. Lee Lavery, I'm having to run for Parliament in the next election. There'll be something very wrong if we can't kick out these Conservatives. Good on you. Go for it. Be a part of the process. Absolutely. Peter Cushion says, always found Vincent Price a little too hammy. There are some roles where he wasn't. There are some really good, solid character roles that he did. Not many of them. Things like Witchfinder General, he's very, very creepy in. But definitely Vincent Price, he's an acquired taste in some ways. Haven't got a copy, haven't been able to watch The French Dispatch yet, Ross, but it's getting towards the top of the list. I do want to watch that and have a bit of fun with it. But I will definitely be watching it. Works well for Price in Theatre of Blood, but not in Dr. Goldfoot. Yeah, Dr. Goldfoot was cashing a check, absolutely. Yeah, Price was excellent in Laura. He did a number of smaller roles where he was very, very good, and I'll always give him credit. This one I haven't watched yet. I want to see this. And it stars Alex Cord, Brett Eklund, and Patrick O'Neill. It's a movie from the 69 called Stiletto, which is a bit of a crime movie. I kind of have a fondness for these kind of crime movies. Yeah, his last movie was Edward Scissorhands. Studio Canal put this out, Clean Out of Lawber. Very 1970s kind of stuff. Not expecting much of this, but I kind of like this kind of late 60s crime movie. So I'm going to check that one out. Dr. Fobbs was Price's best character. No, he didn't get a chance to emote, and his face wasn't on the screen. But I do like Vincent Price. I respect him as an actor, and I think that he did a number of good works. Let's see. This one Imprint put out. No, I'm not big favorite Vincent Price movie, Mask of the Red Death. I agree, Colin. That is fantastic. Fall of the House of Usher is great as well, Brian. The Exile is about a bunch of Native Americans hanging around the bunker areas of LA. No, I haven't, Janet, but it sounds like a good docudrama. Absolutely. Marginalized people and people who are on the fringes of things are really interesting in documentaries and dramas as well. So that will be a good one again. But yeah, this is a late Kurosawa movie, and I haven't seen Round yet, and I haven't seen this one. The two that I haven't really seen. But Imprint put this out recently. Dersu Uzala. I want to see this one. It's about an eccentric Mongolian frontiersman is taken as a guide by Russian surveying crew. While the soldiers at first perceive him as a naive and comical relic of an uncivilized age, Dersu quickly proves himself otherwise, becoming their unlikely savior. Want to see this one a lot. I like Kurosawa stuff, and this is late Kurosawa from 1975. It's got a different internal cover, of course, the way that Umbrella does, and I just hit the microphone, of course. There's the inside. Dr. Fobb is so good that stole the backstory and retconned it as Mr. Freeze in Batman. Yeah, that's possible too. Price was good in Dragon Week about the drug addict. Plus Tiger on top of my monitor I named Dersu. Yeah, fair enough too, William. But yeah, that one, it's one of those kind of movies that gets forgotten. But I'm glad that Imprint are putting this one out, and I like this one a lot. I really want to watch it. And it's long because it's a Kurosawa movie. It's 2 hours 22 minutes. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Let's see. Later on tonight, I'll be watching the Cinematic Rights of Dracula on Blu-ray. Dracula is a cross between Howard Hughes and Fu Manchu, and Joanna Lumley in the Hammer flick. Yeah, I mean, why not? It's one of those modern ones, along with Dracula AD 1972. So we'll see how that goes for you. But yeah, I'm going to be doing Werewolf by Night definitely after I finish this live stream. Looking forward to that because I've been waiting for that since about the 1970s. But let's see, what else have we got here? Also picked up this one. Cinema Cult put it out. No, bare bones, nothing on it. It's a William Castle movie with Joan Crawford. I Saw What You Did, which is about a prank phone call made by a couple of kids, and they accidentally call a guy who's just killed his wife. And so he's going to try to track them down and kill them. It's got John Ireland, Leif Erikson, Joan Crawford, and a couple of kids. Screenplay by William McGivern, so it's good, from a novel by Ursula Curtis. Directed by William Castle. Definitely a lesser William Castle film. Is the inside cover the same? Yeah, it is. But Cinema Cult are putting these out in Australia really cheaply, and I kind of like them. Richard Hart's in £4. What's my favourite Roger Corman movie? There are a few of them. I love the Poe adaptations. Actually, I'll give you a bit of a soundboard as well for that one. Let's see.
Anything can happen in the next half hour.
Thanks for that, Richard. Yeah, favourite Roger Corman movie. I like, because it's the first R-rated movie I saw. I like Boxcar Bertha, which Scorsese did for Roger Corman. And I think if I was going to pick Mask of the Red Death, I think is my favourite movie that Corman directed. I think the use of colour is fantastic. The use of limited sets and low budget is terrific as well. The way they incorporated little bits of other Poe stories like Hop Frog into it. I think Price is really good in it. And yeah, I really should look for a Blu-ray of The Mask of the Red Death. I think I've got a VHS. Oh, not VHS, DVD. But I really want a Blu-ray of that. Does it have a sequel last summer? Which one are we talking about, Franny? But the murder scene in I Saw What You Did is quite graphic for its day, I think. Oh, good. Good. I'll offer that. As always, an awesome job. Thanks for Maternal and Groovy Movies checking out. Thanks, Janet. Take care. And I will catch you guys later on that one. So, The Wolf of Snow Hollow is also a very interesting werewolf movie. It is. I want to see Werewolf of Washington again as well, which was kind of a werewolf movie, which was a satire of the Watergate scandal. Yeah, not enough good werewolf movies these days, are there? That's why I'm looking forward to Werewolf by Night. It also has things that brings Man-Thing into the Marvel universe as well. So I'm crazily looking forward to watching that after we finish this live stream. But definitely, do I keep all the movies I buy even if I don't like them? I try not to buy movies that I don't like. There's some things I take on a punt. Some things if I don't like them, but I know other people will, I will give them to friends. There are some things where I duplicate them or I upgrade to Blu-ray from DVD. In that case, I give them to a specific charity shop. It's called Savers, and it's the charity store for Diabetes Australia. And I give them movies so they can sell them and make some money for that charity. Yeah, Middle-Aged Geek Girl says, I'll watch it with you, but we need snacks. Yeah, we do. It's only 15 minutes long, Middle-Aged Geek Girl. But I definitely think we need snacks. What snacks can we get? We could also always go to the Indian sweet shop and get some Indian sweets. We could get popcorn. We could have chips. I'm looking forward to this. I've got to focus on what I'm doing. I'm doing a live stream. Can't focus on the snacks I'm going to eat after the live stream. So stop distracting me, Middle-Aged Geek Girl, please. Let's see. Saw What You Did sequel last summer. Cheap joke. Absolutely. Let's see. We've got to do. I'll read that again with the rim shot. Let's see how we go. You ready for this, Franny? I Saw What You Did sequel last summer. Cheap joke. There we go. Or we could do this one. No, not just a messy Colin. I can't do nachos. Yeah, we've got possibility. We've got local possibilities for snacks. We'll definitely find things. Yeah, thank you, Middle-Aged Geek Girl. But it's almost time to talk about the worst movie that I've seen this year. But it's not quite yet. So let's see. Last movie I bought. Now, this one I did a whole video about because I like this series. They did 42 movies over like a 20-year period, all starring the same actor as the same character. It's a Japanese series called Otoko wa Surayo, or It's Tough Being a Man. And the character is Tora-san. And I've actually finally got one on physical media. I got some copies off the internet, but I really wanted to get some copies of the Tora-san movies on physical media. And so I ended up getting the first one. I managed to find a copy on eBay at a reasonable cost. And these ones I recommend. They're about Tora-san, who's an itinerant peddler who lives in a suburb from a suburb in Tokyo, Shibamata, and his sister lives there, and his parents run a dengo shop, a sweet shop. And he's really romantically unlucky, but he's well-meaning and he helps everybody around him have a better life while his life goes to shit. And Tora-san is an iconic Japanese movie series. 42 movies over 20-odd years. Really fantastic. And I'm glad I got that. So what's the worst Elvis movie? Let's see. There are just so many bad ones. I saw so many of them when I was in like a kid watching Saturday matinees. Anything after King Creole and before Charo, maybe the one where Mary Tyler Moore played a nun. That's probably it. Let's see, Barry Murphy. Vincent Price never looked cooler than in Corman's Tomb of Ligeia with his top hat and groovy wraparound shades. Yeah, it definitely has a goth steampunky look. Okay, let's see. Did I hear about the vampire who was also a flat earther? His name was No Sphere Atu. Murder scene in Alfred Hitchcock's Frenzy is the most chilling in any film. Yeah, there's a scene also in Torn Curtain where they're trying to kill a spy in a country cottage. And Hitchcock did that scene particularly to show how hard it is to actually kill a person. And the suspense in that one is fantastic. Yeah, Rope's a good one. Rope is kind of smarty pants Hitchcock where he did those long takes. But I think it works. Draws attention to itself a little bit. And I'm kind of off movies where the direction draws attention to itself. But yeah, I like it as an experimental film by Hitchcock. That kind of worked for me. But yeah, so it's time to talk about the worst movie I saw this year. Now, I saw Martyrs this year. I've done a video about Martyrs, which is a really transgressive and full-on hardcore torture porn horror movie done extremely well. I'm going to get to the stream later, but I've got to talk about this because this is the title of the bloody live stream. So that one was a hard watch. I mean, watching Martyrs is difficult, particularly if you're at all familiar with brutality towards women. But I saw a movie the other day and I reviewed it for the radio, which is a kind of iteration of torture porn that I'm really not comfortable with. The movie is Blonde. It's on Netflix and it's about Marilyn Monroe. It's directed by Andrew Dominic, an Australian director who made Chopper back in 2000. And it's based on Joyce Carol Oates' novel, Blonde. And it's kind of a fictionalized, tweaked and rejigged version of the life of Norma Jean Baker. This movie is horrible for a number of reasons. First off, I'm conflicted about it because Ana de Armas, playing Marilyn Monroe / Norma Jean Baker in the movie, is fantastic. She is incredibly good in the role. She is first rate. She's going to get awards. If she doesn't get awards, it's going to be a miscarriage of justice. So leaving aside the fact that she's incredibly good in the role, the movie is monstrous. It makes her entire life unending, horrible torture porn misery. And the movie itself is one of those films where the director is showing off all the way through the film. He does lots of things like moving in and out of focus without real strong purpose behind it. He uses camera effects and special effects to do transitions which are not really on point and necessary. He does this weird thing where he kind of brings things in and out of focus while shooting on Ana de Armas playing Marilyn, to the point that it makes you think that the camera itself is disoriented and not the character. It really, it's a horrible, nasty movie. It does things like it gives you point of view shots from inside Marilyn Monroe's vagina when she's having a pregnancy termination. And they give you shots in a toilet bowl while she's vomiting into the toilet bowl. So the camera's set in a toilet bowl while she's projectile vomiting into the toilet bowl. It is incredibly bad. And it is one of those movies that direction, I think, in a film should draw you into the story. Direction is all about the characters, the story, what you're trying to convey. But what the story does in Blonde is it draws your attention to the direction. And you go, okay, well, he used a steady cam there, he used jittery cam there, he made a fisheye lens there. It's, Blonde is a horror film, Peter Cushing, absolutely 100%. Blonde is a torture porn Marilyn Monroe horror film. And there's no nuance to it. The brutality is there. The biggest issue I've got with it probably is the fact that the character herself has no agency. Marilyn Monroe in real life had stood up for herself a lot more than Ana de Armas is allowed to as the character in Blonde. It's like she's manipulated by everything else and doesn't have the ability to stand up for herself. And that's one of the things with, they do it with Judy Garland to a certain extent as well. And any of these actresses who are iconic and died at an early age, they tend to make it really hideous. And it kind of is a reverse Ed Wood, but it's a lot more serious than that and a lot more horrible than that. And probably the worst transgression that Blonde does, and the one that pissed me off the most, is when she's pregnant and she had an abortion for one of her pregnancies, and women got the rights over their own bodies. I've got no problem with that. And another one, she had a miscarriage. You get point of view shots of the fetus, and the fetus is a lot more developed than a fetus of that age would be in the movie. And it kind of leans into that anti-choice thing. And then later on, you get another pregnancy, which turns out to be a miscarriage. The fetus talks to Marilyn Monroe in the movie. And that, particularly with the kind of getting rid of Roe versus Wade in America, that's a dangerous thing to put into a movie, and not in a good way. It is a dangerous, and it's a retrospective step, and it is a human rights violation in every way. It's horrible and dangerous in the worst possible way. Absolutely, I agree with you, middle-aged Google. The problem I've got is that the Ana de Armas being so really, really good in it is the hard part. If the actress was shit in it, that'd be another thing. But the fact that she commits so hard to the role, and she spent a long time getting the voice right because she has a Cuban Spanish accent, and the fact that she really committed to the role and dived into it so deeply for a movie that ultimately is repugnant in every possible way and misogynistic. And End of the Void has some similar intimate points of internal body shots. I did not think it had any talking features. No. This one is it's the worst movie of the year, not because it isn't made professionally and kind of adeptly. It's that there's just so many bits of it that are wrong, and the direction drawing attention to the direction is something that a movie should never do, because really kind of clever direction should zoom you in on the characters and the story, and this movie does the opposite of that. And yes, it's a horror movie. Yes, it's a really fun acting role, and it's repugnant. There've been a lot of positive reviews of it around, but I can't really find those positive things that people have mentioned about it. It really does piss me off. Yeah, Darmus did read the script before accepting the role. She made a choice, absolutely, and I got no problem with that. And she's very, very good. But there are things that can be done in the direction of the film that really, she wasn't part of those, particularly those scenes with the fetuses. Ross Gilton says, I saw the film. I did feel when there's a biopic, nor is it really about Marilyn Monroe. The idea of Marilyn Monroe is the lens through which we explore the ideas of identity and trauma, etc. I can respect that viewpoint while I disagree, Ross. But for me, it's a deeply repugnant movie. And I don't think I want to see more from Andrew Dominic unless he's going to do a musical. But it's incredibly problematic. And the interesting thing is, I love reviewing these movies for the radio because Michaela, I do the movies with, is she likes horror movies like I do and things like that. But getting a female viewpoint on things, and particularly a female Indigenous viewpoint, because Michaela is Indigenous, is incredibly useful when we're having a back and forth on the radio, talking about these things, and getting her viewpoints on things is always really useful for me and educational for me. But yeah, I'm not going to watch this again. Dean Johnson says, what's my view on Squid Game? Didn't watch it. Middle-aged geek girl watched it and she enjoyed it. I like Korean movies, but yeah. Alan Ford says, I think the assassination of Jesse James was Dominic at his most subtle in relation to displaying directorial style while essaying celebrity in an impactful way. I agree. That's a much, much better film than this one. Middle-aged geek girl says, loved it on Squid Game. Yeah, Squid Game's got its own kind of cultural weight these days. I know that Mr. Beast did a video where he reenacted Squid Game for a whole bunch of people and gave them money if they won. But yeah, Squid Game, I might actually watch Squid Game when the second one comes out. The only funny fetus allowed in this one is in an episode of That's My Bush. That's a blast from the past. That's My Bush was the Trey Parker Matt Stone TV series about George W. Bush, which was getting some traction, and then 9/11 happened and the whole thing fell into a heap. But yeah, let's see what else we've got here. I'll give you another burst of this skeleton. I love this skeleton. There we go. There's the circuit breaker. Yeah, so I've got things I'm looking forward to coming up. I've got a lot of the Marvel stuff. I've got a lot of, I've got Black Adam. I've got Wakanda Forever coming up. What about Pops? Yeah, I've got to do the Funko Pops. I've got some Funko Pops. I collected these. We went through a stage a few years ago before the pandemic where Sally and I were buying Funko Pops madly, and we've still got a lot of them around the house. But these ones I like because they're Asian mythical creature, legendary creatures and myths. And so I like them for that reason. They're probably among my favorites. Could Blonde have been worse if it was directed by Baz Luhrmann? Yeah, because he wouldn't have gone into vaginas and he wouldn't have gone into toilet bowls. So it wouldn't have been worse. But anyway, so I've got these. These two are Filipino cryptids or mythological monsters. Yep, Betty Hill, Yakety Sack. I like these. This one's an aswang. An aswang is kind of like a Filipino vampire. A little hard to see in the box there. But I love the fact that they've got mythical monsters from other cultures being made as Funko Pops. These are becoming crazily valuable, these particular ones, by the way. And it's a Siakoi, which is kind of like a merman one from Filipino mythology, which I like. I just love these ones because they're different and they're from a different cultural viewpoint. And I'm also big on vampires of various cultures. So these ones are the Zhangshi, the Chinese hopping vampires, and they did a 4-pack of Japanese hopping vampires that were only really made for the Asian markets. And they did 4 different kinds of Zhangshi. And there is the Prime Minister, which I love the idea. Yeah, there's a Roger Moores 007 in Moonraker Funko Pop. I wouldn't buy that. So there's a Prime Minister. That's one of them. We've got the Little Prince, Chinese hopping vampire. The Sheriff. I love the designs on these. They're kind of chibi style, but they're really scary at the same time. And I've got the Judge, who's got raggedy teeth. I just love these four. They are just such fun to have. What else was a Scandi science fiction recommended? Aniara. Yeah, it's out. You can get it at Blu-ray fairly easily if you look around. Aniara. You should definitely watch that one, Alan. It's really interesting. And it takes the long view of things. Lisa's only vomiting in the toilet. What could have been worse? Yeah, Blonde didn't work for me. I mean, Netflix have done some good things. I don't want to kick Netflix in the guts all the time. They edited Orson Welles' last film, The Other Side of the Wind, and released it. So they always get a bit of credit from me for that. They did Mank, which was about Herman Mankiewicz, who worked on Citizen Kane with Orson Welles. And that's a fine piece of work as well, with Gary Oldman in it. I like what they did with that one as well. But I want to see future movies where they look at the history of Hollywood. I think there's a lot of meat still on that bone, particularly when you can tell stories more honestly in a Netflix format than you could necessarily in, say, a cinema release film. But I think that Blonde didn't work for me. One of the reviewers I saw said that it stuck with them for days after they watch it, but in a bad way. And I've had the same experience. The movie stayed with me, but it stays with you the way stain on your favorite shirt stays with you. Colin Watts says, "Hey, I read the Death of Grass and novel No Blade of Grass is based on. Interesting read." Yeah, those novels are really interesting as well. Have I seen Aswang from 1994? Very interesting and trippy. There have been a few Aswang movies. I've got the Aswang Chronicles. Haven't seen the 1994 one, but I recommend it. Have I got a flight? No, that's supposed to be Spiderwebs, Paul. Just a friendly reminder, super chats are welcome. Help buy movie snacks for Werewolf at Night. They're remaking Nosferatu. Yeah, why not? I mean, it doesn't mean that the original Nosferatu is not there. If the remake bombs, big deal. You know, you watched it, you enjoyed it, or you didn't enjoy it. The original will always be there. Any Roger Corman masterpieces? I've already said that, Dean. Mask of the Red Death I like. I kind of like Cannonball, the original Cannonball Run, before Burt Reynolds did Cannonball Run. Paul Bartel, working for Roger Corman, made Cannonball with David Carradine, amongst other people, traveling from New York to LA in a crazy car race. I kind of like that as well. I like a lot of the stuff that people like Alan Arkush did for Roger Corman, like Hollywood Boulevard. I like Bucket of Blood. There are just so many Roger Corman films. Bought the final program after seeing one of the videos. I like those kind of films. Yeah, Petty Cushion. The final program's a lot of fun. Didn't work for me either. No, it wasn't Death Race 2000. There is Cannonball as well with David Carradine and Roger Corman. You might want to IMDb that. Death Race 2000 is a different film. They're similar in theme. One set in the future in a dystopia, one set in the 1970s. But I like them both. It kind of works for me. Toward the end of the last stream, my truck gets out. Love the final program. I wanted to get it on VHS in the 80s, but it was 71 quid at the time. You remember when VHSs were really crazily expensive? When I was living in Sydney in Glebe, there was a VHS warehouse nearby that sold VHS movies to video shops, which was useful in one way, but they sold them for like 70 or 80 bucks at the time because that's what they cost. They hadn't, the sales through to people who would buy them for themselves wasn't really a market yet. But they did have a whole Basically, they laid them out on a concrete floor. They had a whole bunch of ex-rental movies that were returned to the warehouse that they were flogging off for $5 each. And I got so many cult films by going in and buying $5 VHS things, then schlepping bags full of them back to the cottage I was living in. But yeah, the VHS used to be really expensive at one stage. Yeah, Shadow of the Vampire is about the making of Nosferatu. I saw that with my mate Jamie in a cinema. I think it was the Jam Factory in Hodge Jam Factory in South Yarra. And we were the only two people in the audience watching Shadow of the Vampire. I've got it on DVD. A really good film. Willem Dafoe's really good in that. Rudy Giuliani is in the running for the Nosferatu remake. No, he doesn't have the credibility to do that. Yeah, Mr. DS Gen Z trying to catch me out. You're not going to catch me out on Roger Corman. Anya Taylor-Joy would be absolutely great as a female Nosferatu. Anya Taylor-Joy is a really fun actress. I really loved her in Last Night in Soho. That was one of my favorites for this year. Wendigo and Habit by Larry Fessenden, the thoughtful horror. Night from Cardiff. Alan, take care. It's late night there, mate. Get some sleep. Knit the raveled sleeve of care. Take care of yourself. Yeah, Anya Taylor-Joy's in the Nosferatu movie. Cool. I'm up for that. I like her. Colin Watts sent 2 quid. Don't forget to put jalapenos in the nachos. Not having nachos this time, but I always try to give it a little spice. Absolutely. But the middle-aged girl says Sharktopus. She likes Sharktopus. She likes all of those really weird shark movies and cheapo asylum level monster movies. Now, Rudy Giuliani doesn't have credibility. Rudy Giuliani was in that Borat movie. I think he showed his true self in that, but apart from that, no. Sharktopus was Corman. Okay, cool. I want Roger Corman to live forever. It's like Lloyd Kaufman from Troma. I love Lloyd Kaufman. I love Roger Corman. I think that they've done some incredibly interesting stuff. And there are some movie makers that you want to keep making movies and never die. And I think that Roger Corman is one of those, and also Lloyd Kaufman. Cannibals Year After Death Race, and I've still got to see Grand Theft Auto. Absolutely. And you Taylor-Joy in Queen's Gambit. Haven't seen Queen's Gambit yet, but I wouldn't be adverse to it. Alexander Skarsgård is not for a movie as Gruff Orlok. Yeah, I could see that. How outcommon you. An entire crowd crying, I am Sharktopus. 1:45 a.m. in Ireland. Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, what else are you going to do 1:45 in the morning? The kebab shop shut. They say Dario Argento's latest, Dark Glasses, is actually fairly decent. I'd be up for seeing that. I like Argento. Even bad Argento is kind of interesting. He's one of those directors that, yeah, he'll make shit films, but there won't be an entire loss. But, yeah, Argento, the only problem I've got with an Argento is that Asia Argento's relationship with Anthony Bourdain was one of the contributing factors to his suicide. But apart from that, definitely, yeah, let's see. Love to see a Galaxy of Terror reboot, and yes, with that scene in full. Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to happen. I mean, you could always get rich and do it yourself, but no, probably won't happen. But yeah, we're kind of lucky to be where we are and to live where we are and when we are. Because apart from anything else, all of the old movies that you really like are being put into physical form. And they're preserved because of that reason. Because we used to lose movies a lot. We used to have movies where the original media deteriorated and they died. Lost films are a definite thing. And every time a movie you like gets put into physical format, it won't die. People will keep it. To turn them into physical media, DVD, Blu-ray, 4K, means that somebody did a digital remastering of it and they're backing that sucker up because they don't want to lose it again. So all the wonderful movies that we like from the past are being preserved. Not all of them, but enough of them to make it really interesting. Every shitty old cult movie that you ever liked that's on DVD has been rescued from oblivion And I kind of like that idea. I like the concept of us owning movies. And yeah, people say you only own the rights to play it for yourself, but you still own the movie. And I love the fact that everybody who's got a video collection is a museum these days. We are a library, and we're preservationists of these physical media. And I like that. I think that so much of what we like in the world disappears with time. And it's good that the movies and TV series we like are preserved. John Frankenheimer's Seconds, Dean. I'm getting a Blu-ray of that soon. I'm going to review it. Let's see. Paul Nash's Werewolf versus the Vampire Woman is actually getting US Blu-ray release this Halloween. Great. Haven't got into that much of Paul Nash's stuff. It's a little hard to access here, but yeah. I will be reviewing Seconds. I managed to get a decent copy of it fairly cheaply on eBay, and it's on its way now. Seconds is unarguably Rock Hudson's best film. Studying Terror, Sherlock Holmes and trailer Black Jack the Ripper. I've got a copy of that. Really good film. The remake is film does not have the longest shelf life. CD DVDs used to rate shelf life of 75 years. Also, digital transfer helps preserve the quality of the master print. Absolutely. But for the foreseeable future, we are preserving the movies. Do you worry about disk rot affecting your collection? You keep digital backup on a big hard drive? No. The first DVD I bought was Talented Mr. Ripley. And I bought that over 20 years ago, and it's still going okay. So I'm not. There was a problem with disc rot on CDs, but if you have them on shelves in cases and keep them away from direct sunlight and dust and things like that, disc rot's not really a problem with physical media because of the way they're manufactured. So I've never had a problem with that. I've had one movie, I think, out of all the movies that I've got that I had an issue with, but I think it may have been the DVD drive I put it in had some problems with the lenses and the brushes. So yeah, not really a problem for me. Most of the movies I've got are going to outlive me, and I intend to live for a very long time. Yeah, it is absolutely one of Rock Hudson's best films. Seconds. I think that, and as a serious film, it's his best film. As even looking at his whole career, including the comedies, I think is one of his best films. And it plays into the fact that Rock Hudson did live a hidden life, let's say, at the time, and his character living a hidden life allowed him to give a little bit of juice to it. Laserdisc has major issues with disc rot. Yeah, I think one of the problems with Laserdisc is that lasers were a lot more powerful to read the media, and that may have impacted it. But these days, the lasers are kind of more focused in of the nature of the media, of course. And they don't have to be blazingly powerful. They just have to be powerful enough to read the media. But yeah, I mean, Laserdisc I never got into because they were crazily expensive. Here, the players were enormously expensive. And the idea of flipping over the disc every time was a pain in the ass. It wasn't until we got high definition screens to watch these things on that digital media really kicked in for me. DVDs, Blu-rays, that kind of thing. I think that we are living in a wonderful time for that exact reason. Any last questions? Because we're getting about 12 minutes to the end of the live stream. Happy to take anything you got to throw at me that you haven't already. Also happy to take super chats if people want to as well. But let's see. Rock Hudson, the Boatload of Men, United States and Zebra. Could that movie be made today? Why not? I mean, it'd probably have a lot more gender diverse and racially diverse, even though they did have Jim Brown in it. It could be remade. Seconds is an amazing, complex, deep movie. Selfless is a cheap rip-off of the initial plot. Yeah. There are always going to be movies that, lesser movies that steal from older films, which is one of the issues I've got with Star Wars, of course. It stole a lot of stuff from Dune, it stole a lot of stuff from another number of other places. Much like Death Race movies, yeah. Death Race movies were crazy. Doing a remake of Death Race 2000 and things like that was just stupid. And I think that there was Death Race movies were old enough at the time that there wasn't really a big fan base for them anyway. And then they went and made really stupid movies based on it. Hi, Muhammad. How you doing, man? We're doing fine here. Just heading up towards lunchtime and enjoying ourselves. Oh, I've got a microphone there. I better be careful of that. Sorry, I'm opening a drink because I'm throat again. Oh, that was good. Yeah, so let's see what else I'm about to be watching soon. I was waiting for so long for superhero movies to really kick in, and in 2008 they did. Yeah. So yeah, anybody got any buzz on Black Adam? I mean, I've seen the trailers, but I'm not getting any buzz on it yet, which is a little bit worrying for me. But Dwayne Johnson, I'm worried he's going to explode someday. The guy is pumping himself. I mean, I watched Dune. He was in, Doom. He was in, and he was fairly jacked then, but he is so swollen now compared to that. Let's see, full moon over Memphis, Brian. Yeah, nice, like a good full moon. Where I live, things are fairly flat. It's a fairly flat area, so when the moon rises, I can go up to the dormant volcano, which is about 2 kilometers away, and I can look at the moon really well. We get beautiful moon rises and moonsets here. Okay, yeah, looking forward to seeing The Rock in the movie where he's not wearing a t-shirt in the jungle, Colin. Definitely. Yeah, Paul Cook says, love catching up. Remember the old Paleo Cinema days? I remember them too. By the way, the podcast is still up there. I've archived the podcasts. They're preserved and people can watch them. I'm not adding to them at the moment, but both of my podcasts are still available online. No, all I know about Black Adam, says Brian, is that the Hawkman makes an appearance. Yeah, and Dr. Fate. You got Pierce Brosnan with a really interesting and great beard. And I'm feeling a little self-conscious at the moment as Dr. Fate in that. And that's going to be interesting to see as well, because I like Dr. Fate as a character. I like those Disney supernatural characters like Zatanna and the Phantom Stranger and Dr. Fate. I kind of like the vibe of those, and also Constantine, of course. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether that movie goes and whether they'll have post-credit sequences to see whether they're going to be doing other things later. DC, like Marvel, has a really deep intellectual property catalog that it doesn't dip into enough. There are things they did like Stargirl, which dipped into the past of the DC intellectual properties. But yeah, it'd be interesting. Yeah, Brosnan always has great looking beards. Yeah, he does. I think that Brosnan's career post James Bond has either been really good or really bad. I mean, really bad would be the Mamma Mia movies, but really good would be some of the character pieces he's done since then. And I like the fact that there's that third act in the career of an actor after James Bond. We're getting it with Daniel Craig in Knives Out, and also Glass Onions, the sequel to Knives Out, which I'm looking forward to coming out soon. I like that Benoit Blanc character, and I like the kind of way they've reinvented the Agatha Christie kind of mystery, into a new era. So yeah, The Rock, is he any good in any films? Can't think of any. I think that he does a certain kind of movies, but I think he's never really going to go into the guts of himself to do a good character actor piece. Taylor of Panama, yeah, Brosnan was good in that. No Escape Within Him, and it was terrifying. Nothing to do with the beard. It was a truly terrifying movie. Okay. Do I remember Remington Steele? Yeah, but I try to forget it. Let's see. But yeah, Remington Steele was kind of watered down American TV from that 1980s era where American TV was so careful in the Reagan administration, particularly, where they were too careful of offending anybody. They did very middle of the road stuff. And that's a shame, because I think now that we've got streaming and things have diversified, we're getting a lot more adult entertainment out of America. Yeah, Cowboys and Aliens wasn't good. By the way, Daniel Craig was in that as well. Dwayne Johnson is the Arnold Schwarzenegger of the 21st century. Yeah, but I'm not sure he has the self-awareness that Arnold has. I like what Arnold's done recently, particularly his public service announcements and things like that. I think that he's got to the stage of his life that he will call out bullshit without worrying about whether it's going to affect his career. And I kind of like that. But Dwayne Johnson, it's an interesting phenomenon. I mean, he's probably a nice guy. I haven't heard anything bad about him as a human being. But I think that getting that jacked for that long is kind of dangerous. And seeing him that jacked for that long is a bit worrying. But yeah, I mean, he's definitely a star. But whether he's ever going to evolve into a nuanced actor. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger's done a couple of really good character roles like Mandy and things like that. Was it Mandy or that one where his daughter turned into a zombie? I think that Arnold's done a couple of interesting character pieces. Yeah, he's definitely mellowed out after leaving politics. I think that politics, American Republican politics in particular, left him behind by going incredibly to the right, and he came from an environment where that kind of thing was in recent history, and it gave him a very interesting and unique perspective, and he had a soapbox to explore that perspective in an interesting way. Pierce Brosnan was probably too handsome in a cheesy way when he was younger, taking him more seriously now he's older. Yeah, absolutely. I think that some actors age into character roles beautifully. I think Brad Pitt's starting to do it, even though he's doing interesting things like Bullet Train that I really want to watch. But how many upcoming Indonesian superhero movies other than Bumi Langit? I don't know. I know Shria C's just come out, but it's really hard for us to access Indonesian superhero movies here in Australia. I want to see more of them. I really am looking to exploring that world more, and I really want to. But it's hard to find them, particularly with English subtitles, because I really want to understand the movies in detail. But I think that I'm glad that Indonesia is making these movies. Eventually, I will find copies of them. But Mohammed, are really getting hold of those movies is very, very difficult. And yeah, it's a shame. I think that I want more. Oh, shit, I hit the thing again. I'm getting uncoordinated this late in the live stream. I think that I want to see more movies of various kinds from various cultures. Things like RRR, which came out of India, gave us, almost superheroes in a really interesting action film, which did things that American action films wouldn't even imagine doing. The imagination and the cultural grounding that a movie like RRR really gave me hope for the future of a global revival of action films. Is the Five Deadly Venoms a superhero movie? Yeah, it can be if you want to. I think it's definitely a heroic movie, and they do have supernatural powers. So yeah, why not? It doesn't hurt to say they're superhero movies. And I like Shaw Brothers movies anyway. They were part of my grounding in early 1970s action films. I was watching kung fu movies before Bruce Lee hit big in the early 1970s. Hobbs and Shaw and Get Smart were entertaining. Kind of, yeah, in a very basic way. Is Doctor Who a superhero show? No, it's like it's a magical person with a magic wand who comes in and solves problems in a very bossy way. Yeah, I mean, Doctor Who, I'm not that fond of because I think that it's a little, even though they've kind of complexed it up, it's still like an alpha human or an alpha alien with a magic wand fixing problems. It's strange that Arnold Schwarzenegger became a big star with that accent. Became a big star because of Terminator. And that's why a movie like Predator works so much. It's not hard to see Arnold Schwarzenegger beat up less jacked guys. When something beats up Arnold Schwarzenegger, it becomes a very interesting movie. Yeah, well, yeah, watched Doctor Who since 1974. Yeah, big deal. Yeah, I'm not fond of Doctor Who. I'll be honest with you. I think that It's a cash cow that the BBC keeps milking. And I know it's got a large fan base, and I respect a lot of people who like Doctor Who. But for me, it's still, well, it's not necessarily a white savior thing now that we're going to get a Doctor Who of color, which may well change the tangent. But yeah, it kind of, there's something about it that I find discomforting as a cultural thing. And that's the issue I've got with it. But it's nice to see diversity. It's nice to see inclusion, but there are better venues for that. And if it changes, fair enough. I'm all in favor of that change. I'm all in favor of that broadening out of perspective. But for me, it just doesn't work for that reason. But anyway, I'm going to finish up the live stream now. Thanks for everybody who contributed. Shaw Brothers, Man of Iron, Dragon Missile, great, both anti-hero rather than straight hero type. Thanks, Brian. I'm going to add those to the list because I do go through the chats and pick up anything that people have suggested. So thanks a lot for everybody watching. You've been great. You've been helpful. You've listened to me for 2 hours, you poor bastards. But I'm going to do another live stream. I'm trying to make it monthly and get it done. Everybody in the North America and Europe, go the fuck to sleep. The rest of us, get on with your day. We're going to have a good time. Watch Werewolf by Night if you get a chance. I think it's going to be a bit of fun. Middle-aged Gig Girl and I are going to get our snacks now and watch that. We're going to have fun. We're going to enjoy and look after yourselves. Be safe. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel. Leave some comments. Hit the notification bell too. So if we do a live stream, you're going to get notified before it happens. Look after yourselves. Watch good movies. Watch bad movies. Watch a few horror movies. Watch some interesting stuff. And I will catch you guys next time. And get better, Mr. D.S. Genzi. I'll see you guys later.